Hey guys, how are you this morning, today, this afternoon, tonight, wherever you are in the world? It's morning here in Sydney, Australia, and I wanted to do this video very quickly today, just to extrapolate a little bit on a previous video that I did regarding the structures and foundations of the prototypical zodiac wheel and the cardinal points that we look at to interpret one's natal chart. So I did just want to summarize that very briefly, but I also wanted to talk to you a little bit more about the peripheral components, or the peripheral celestial bodies that we actually look at, astrologers and astrologists look at when interpreting a natal chart as well. So things like certain constellations, exoplanets, dwarf planets, and asteroids as well, that we do find in a natal chart. Okay, so again, my composite chart. I don't do a great deal, as you can see, I don't do a great deal of preparation when prepping for these videos. I sort of just wing it a little bit, so do bear with me, please. So just to summarize the previous video when I talked about the structure of cosmic astrology, we have the 4 cardinal points of a natal chart. Okay, so anything that happens below this meridian here, below the horizon, is the descendant. That's the descendant point. Okay, so that's where the sun meets, well, the sunset meets the path on the western horizon. Okay, so anything that happens below that line speaks to and relates to your private life. Okay, so heritage and home, and also parental influences, cultural influences. But planets that we find that occur or position themselves from below that line tend to influence those particular aspects and components of your life. Above the line, above the horizon, the ascendant is our public image. Okay, so that's where the sunrise meets the eastern horizon. So that is our public image. Okay, that's our social standing, our reputation. It's Tropic of Capricorn, which is the father archetype, whereas descendant is the mother archetype, Tropic of Cancer. Capricorn rules the 10th house of fame, career, public image, reputation, and that's the 10th house. So 6 houses away from that, because there's 12 houses, is your Cancer, which is 4th house of home, motherhood, nurturing. So those particular components and aspects of your life. Okay, so these 2 cardinal points here is your Imam Colon. That's not the typical Latin pronunciation, but that's my English Aussie pronunciation, and your midheaven, so your MC. Okay, now just touching a little bit on, I'll start just with the dwarf planets, because the most major dwarf planet, which never used to be a dwarf planet, was once a planet, but NASA decided to stuff with it. Is obviously Pluto, and Pluto rules the 8th house. So the 8th house of Scorpio, which is all about transformation, the underworld, sex, other people's money, tax, inheritance, and things like that. So Pluto is what we call a generational planet. Takes around about 25 to 27 years to actually orbit and transit through one house, one sign. So it is a generational planet, and it relates to the big issues in our life. And when Pluto arrives in a particular house in our chart, that is where we will find the most transformative aspects of our lives, okay, and situations and occurrences of our lives. We also have Ceres or Cheris. Okay, Ceres is all about parenthood. And then we have Maki, which is was known as the god and goddess of fertility. All right, so just trying to be really brief and succinct here, guys. Okay, now we also have asteroids as well. Okay, so probably the The most prominent asteroid that we look at, that astrologers and astrologists look at, is Chiron, okay? Now, Chiron is known as the wounded healer. So the story of Chiron is very loved by his parents. He was a centaur, okay, so half horse, half man. But he had a lot of parenthood wounds, and he was a what would have been known in the Babylonic times as a doctor, okay? So when we find him in our chart, whatever house he falls in is usually the aspects of those houses and the components of those houses is usually where we find that we need the most healing in our lives. So for example, using mine as a prototype, I have him, Chiron, in my second house, which is ruled by Taurus and Venus, and that's all about possessions, security, safety, tangible possessions. So I have a lot of healing to do around finances and possessions, money, and feeling secure in that particular space with that particular energy. So that's just an example. There's also Vesta, the Vesta asteroid. Vesta translates to little light. So she speaks to the uniqueness, the little light inside of us that makes us unique, okay? There's Eros. I'm sure you've heard of Eros. And Eros is all about sex, passion, lust, okay? Then there's Juno, okay? And Juno occurs around the descendant, because what I forgot to tell you before is our ascendant, so our rising sign. That is our first house, our personal first house. So mine is Aries. They are the characteristics that we put forth unto the world, okay? It's sort of our egoic shell, our egoic mask, that vest that we wear to protect ourselves, to protect all of the innards, the inside aspects of ourselves that we like to keep safe. So it's our egoic mask, okay? So the analogy that I usually prescribe when talking about our rising sign is, you know, when you go to a party, if you go to a party and you've got to get through the guards first and all the people that are sort of hanging out in the foyer to then get into the actual guts of the party where all the really interesting characters are. And those interesting characters are things like our moon sign and our star sign or our sun sign. So our rising sign, those characteristics are the little characters that guard the door before you can actually get into the guts of the party. So that's what we bequeath unto the world to protect our internal world, okay? And your descendant usually speaks to who we're attracted to, okay? So a life partner, and not just life partner, but also people that we have lustful, passionate feelings for, because we know there is a difference between lust and love, okay? So Juno usually relates to where you find her in the chart is usually where you will find the aspects and characteristics of the person who would be suitable to you as a life partner, okay? All right. One of the other cardinal points that doesn't really get a great look in, but that I love, I tend to be quite exhaustive and comprehensive when studying this particular cardinal point, is what we call our black moon or dark moon Lilith. And it's a certain point on our natal chart. It's usually furthest point from the moon's orbit, so where we find the moon's orbit within the zodiac wheel, okay? And she is all about our impulses, that darkness inside of us, our primitive urges and that raw nature. So for example, my Lilith, my dark moon or black moon Lilith is in my 8th house of, my 7th house, which is Libra, because I'm an Aries rising. So because I'm an Aries rising and Aries rules the 1st house, my chart follows the prototypical zodiac wheel. So my black moon Lilith or dark moon Lilith is actually found in the 7th house of partnerships. So that's all about duality and working relationships, whether it be with people in your family, people in your professional life, in your career, or your actual life partner. So whether that just be a partner or your married partner, whoever that might be. And so I have a lot of primitive raw urges that need to be tempered when it comes to relationships, and my codependent nature when it comes to relying on other people, right? Because we know that fulfillment comes from within. Okay, so I think I've covered it all. So just to summarize, with the cardinal points, we have the MC, okay, so above the ascendant, above the horizon, okay, which is known as top of the sky. Then the IC, the Imam Coli, which is bottom of the sky. So that is our private underworld, everything that happens under the surface, under the horizon, okay? And our ascendant and descendant. So this talks to partnership, life partners, and this is our egoic nature. So I think I've covered it all. I'm pretty sure I have. Hopefully I've kept it under 10 minutes. Thanks for your time, guys. If you do want to understand the energy around some of the archetypes that I am talking about, I would definitely suggest going back and revisiting my previous videos as well. If you do have any suggestions, as always, drop a comment in the section below. Hit the like and subscribe button and notification button if you'd like to get notifications whenever I upload a new video, and share this video if you think it would be of interest to anybody that you know. All right, guys, thanks for your time, and I'll see you on the next video. KLB out. Bye.